Hello, beautiful souls. Tonight we're talking about Mercury meeting Mars, a conjunction that becomes exact tomorrow at 10 degrees, Pisces, and the 7 very specific things this transit tends to produce in your body, your emotions, and your inner world. Now, if the last few days have felt strange to you, if you've been more irritable than usual, or your sleep has been restless, or you found yourself on the verge of tears and you genuinely don't know why you are not imagining it, there is something real happening in the sky. And what makes this particular conjunction so unusual is that Mercury is retrograde. It's not moving forward into Mars the way it normally would. It's moving backward into Mars. The collision is happening inward, not outward. And it's happening in Pisces, the one sign where Mercury functions at its absolute weakest. In traditional astrology, Mercury is in both its detriment and its fall in Pisces, which means the part of you that normally names your feelings, makes sense of your experience, puts words to what's happening inside you. That system is running at its lowest capacity right now, and Mars just walked into the room and turned up the heat. So let me walk you through exactly what that produces, and more importantly, why. Let me give you the full picture of what's happening, because this conjunction doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a much larger story that's been unfolding all month. Mercury stationed retrograde on February 26th in Pisces. Since then, it's been moving backward through the sign where it struggles the most. Mercury is the planet that governs how we think, how we communicate, how we name and organize our inner experience. It's the part of your mind that takes a feeling and turns it into a sentence. In Pisces, that process gets blurred. Pisces doesn't think in straight lines. It thinks in dreams, in impressions, in feelings that don't always translate into language. So Mercury in Pisces is already like trying to write a letter underwater. The pen moves, the hand knows what it wants to say, but the ink dissolves before it reaches the page. Now add Mars, and someone just heated the water to a boil. Mars entered Pisces at the beginning of March, and it's been building toward this conjunction all week. Mars is heat, urgency, activation. It's the planet that says, act now, speak now, move now. In a fire sign, Mars is direct and clear. In Pisces, Mars has no clean target. The warrior is underwater. The sword doesn't work the same way down here. So the martial energy, that drive, that impulse, that heat has nowhere to go outward. It turns inward instead. And here's what makes this different from other Mercury-Mars conjunctions. Normally when these two meet, the effect moves outward. You speak sharply, you make a bold decision, you say something you've been holding back. But when Mercury is retrograde, the direction reverses. Mercury is backing into Mars. The collision is happening inside your psyche, not in your conversations. That's why this transit doesn't necessarily look like arguments with other people. It looks like arguments with yourself. Feelings that rise with nowhere to land. Heat in your body without a clear cause. And a retrograde Mercury meeting Mars, specifically in Pisces at this degree, is something that doesn't happen often. The last time we saw this was years ago, which is part of why this particular window feels so different from a typical Mercury retrograde. The water is deeper here. Now, I want to place this conjunction in context, because the timing matters enormously. On March 3rd, we had a lunar eclipse at 12 degrees Virgo. That eclipse cracked something open. It activated themes around release, completion, and letting go of patterns you've outgrown. Then on March 7th, Mercury had its Cazimi with the Sun at 16 degrees Pisces, that brief, bright moment when Mercury passes directly across the face of the Sun and receives a flash of clarity. Some of you may have experienced that, a day or two where something suddenly made sense, where the fog lifted just long enough for you to see something clearly, and then it settled back in. That was real. Then Jupiter stationed direct on March 10th at 15 degrees. Cancer forward momentum is building in the background. even if you can't feel it yet. And this conjunction tomorrow is the final pressure point before the release. The new moon in Pisces arrives on March 18th, just 3 days after this peaks, and Mercury itself stations direct on March 20th. What you're feeling right now is not the beginning of something difficult, it's the climax of something that's almost complete. If you've already been feeling this building over the past few days, if you noticed a shift in your body or your mood earlier this week, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments when you first noticed it. I think you'll be surprised how many of us started feeling this at exactly the same time. Now, let me walk you through the 7 things this conjunction tends to produce. And I want to be clear, these aren't vague generalities. Each one has a specific astrological reason behind it, and I'm going to explain exactly why each one is happening. The first is sudden irritability with no clear cause. A flash of frustration that seems to come from nowhere. Someone says something perfectly ordinary, and you feel a surge of anger completely out of proportion to the moment. Or you wake up already agitated before anything has even happened. This is Mars energy with no outlet. In Pisces, Mars can't discharge its heat directly because there's no clear target. Pisces dissolves the edges of everything, including whatever you might be angry about. So the anger floats. It has no object, no name, no edges. When retrograde Mercury collides with that, your mind tries to find a reason for the agitation and can't. The result is irritability that feels sourceless heat without a vent. You're not becoming a difficult person. Your body is processing martial energy that has no clear channel right now. And the irritation is often a signal that something genuinely does need to change, but the retrograde is telling you not to act on it yet. Feel it. Name it as energy, not as truth. The clarity about what to do with it arrives after March 20th. The second thing is vivid, strange, or emotionally intense dreams. Dreams that feel more real than your waking life. Dreams about people you haven't thought of in years, a parent, an old friend, someone you once loved. Dreams with an emotional charge that lingers into your morning and follows you around for hours. Pisces governs the dream world, the unconscious, the space where the veil between inner and outer is thinnest. Mercury retrograde is already pulling your mind inward and backward through memory. Mars adds voltage. It's like someone turned up the current in the dream space. Your unconscious material isn't just surfacing quietly, it's surfacing urgently. Mars demands attention, even while you sleep. If you've been waking up feeling like you lived an entire second life overnight, exhausted, shaken, or deeply moved by something that technically wasn't real, this is the conjunction working through the only unguarded hours you have. Your psyche is using your sleep to process what the waking mind has been too busy or too defended to address. And here's what I'd suggest. Pay attention to the emotions in the dream, not the literal content. The specific events may be symbolic, but the feeling tone is the message. What were you feeling? That's what wants your attention in your waking life. The third is words coming out wrong or saying something you didn't mean to say. You're mid-sentence and something escapes that you hadn't planned, a truth you weren't ready to share. A sharpness in your voice that surprises even you. Or the opposite, you try to say something important and the words just dissolve. You trail off, you lose the thought, you say never mind, and walk away frustrated. This is the most direct expression of the conjunction. Mercury is communication, Mars is impulse. When they collide while Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, the filter between feeling and speech becomes paper thin. Words bypass the editing process because Mars pushes Mercury to speak before it's found the right language. Or they dissolve entirely because Pisces undermines Mercury's ability to be precise. The retrograde adds the dimension of old truths, things you've been holding back for weeks, months, sometimes years, suddenly finding the exit. And I want to say something about this gently because I know this is the one that causes real distress. If you said something sharp this week to someone you love, if something slipped out that you weren't ready to share, you are not careless. The planetary weather made the boundary between feeling and speech almost impossibly thin. And sometimes, even when the delivery was messy, the truth underneath it was real. Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars doesn't create feelings that weren't already there. It removes the gate that was holding them back. If that one landed for you, if you've had one of those moments this week where something came out of your mouth and you thought, where did that come from? You are not alone in that. Tell me about it in the comments. I think naming it actually helps release some of the charge. The fourth thing is waves of emotion with no obvious source. Crying at a commercial, a sudden swell of grief for something you lost years ago, a wave of tenderness so strong it almost aches for a time, a place, a person, a version of yourself you can barely remember. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It carries the emotional memory of every sign before it. When Mars stirs Mercury retrograde here, it's like running your hand along the bottom of a very deep, very still lake. Everything that had settled rises. Mercury retrograde pulls consciousness backward through its own archives. Mars is the hand that stirs. And here's what I want you to understand. These emotions may not be about what you think they're about. The commercial that made you cry isn't really about the commercial. It touched a frequency, a feeling that's been waiting for permission to surface. Pisces holds collective grief as well as personal grief. You may be processing feelings that belong to your family line, your generation, your wider human experience. For women especially, and I say this with deep respect, there is a cultural message that strong emotion without an obvious reason is somehow irrational or excessive. This transit says the opposite. The emotion is the reason. The tears are not weakness. They are the body's way of completing something the mind never had words for. Let them come. These waves are cleansing. And sometimes the bravest, most Mars thing you can do is let yourself cry without needing to justify it to anyone, including yourself. The fifth is physical tension. Headaches, jaw clenching, disrupted sleep, a restless body that doesn't know what it needs. Your shoulders are up near your ears and you didn't notice. Your jaw aches when you wake up. You're tired but wired, exhausted, yet unable to settle. A headache that won't fully arrive or fully leave. Mars rules the physical body, the muscles, the adrenal system. When Mars energy is activated but cannot express itself outward because Mercury is retrograde, because Pisces dissolves the target, the energy deposits into the body itself. The body becomes the container for what can't be spoken, decided, or acted upon yet. Tension is unfinished action stored in tissue. Mercury retrograde adds the mental loop, the mind circling the same unresolved thought, and each loop tightens the body a fraction more. In Pisces, you may not even be conscious of which thought is creating the tension. It operates beneath the surface. You are not falling apart. Your body is doing exactly what a body does when it's holding energy that hasn't found its way out yet. It stores it. And this is the transit that responds most directly to physical release. Movement, even gentle movement, gives Mars a channel, a walk, stretching, putting your hands in soil. Even 10 minutes changes the energy. Anything that lets the body do what the mind cannot yet articulate. The sixth is an old conversation or unresolved conflict replaying in your mind as if it happened yesterday. Something someone said to you years ago that you never responded to the way you wished you had. An argument that technically ended but never actually resolved. A relationship that closed without the conversation it needed. This is textbook Mercury retrograde, the revisitation function. Mercury retrograde pulls the mind backward through its archives, reopening files the conscious mind had filed away. In Pisces, these are emotional archives, not practical ones. You're not remembering logistical mistakes, you're remembering how something made you feel, and Mars is what makes it urgent. Without Mars, Mercury retrograde in Pisces might bring gentle nostalgia, a soft revisiting. With Mars, the memory arrives with heat, with the energy of I should have said something, I should have stood up for myself. Why didn't I speak? Mars wants action. Mercury retrograde says, not yet, but look at this first. If an old wound has reopened this week, it's not because you failed to heal it properly the first time. It's because you're ready now for a deeper layer of understanding that you weren't ready for then. Healing is not linear, it spirals, and each pass through brings you closer to the center. The replay isn't asking you to reopen the situation externally. You don't need to send that message or make that call. It's asking you to finally say, even just to yourself, what you wished you'd said. Write it down. Speak it aloud in an empty room. The completion doesn't require the other person's presence. It requires yours. And the seventh, and I want you to listen closely to this one because I think it may be the most important. The seventh thing is a strange, quiet pull to say something brave or make a change, even though every part of your rational mind is saying the timing is wrong. Despite the fog, despite the tension, despite all the confusion, there's something underneath all of it. A persistent inner voice that says, it's time. Time to say the thing. Time to make the change. Time to stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. And every logical part of you is pushing back. Mercury is retrograde. I'm not ready. This isn't the right moment. And yet the pull doesn't stop. This is the gift hidden inside the conjunction. And it's the one most astrologers don't talk about. Mars, conjunct Mercury, even retrograde, produces courage. Mars is the planet that acts. And while the retrograde means that courage is directed inward rather than outward, inward courage is still courage. The courage to admit what you've been avoiding, the courage to be honest with yourself about what you want, the courage to stop pretending something is working when it isn't. And here's the astrological detail that makes this even more meaningful. The North Node, the point of destiny in your chart, is currently at 27 degrees Pisces. Mercury will conjoin it just as it stations direct on March 20th. The retrograde is walking Mercury right toward that destiny point. What feels like confusion right now may actually be the trembling that happens right before a breakthrough. The old self shakes as the new one presses through. So if you feel pulled towards something but the timing seems wrong, trust the pull, not to act impulsively, not to send the text at midnight, but to acknowledge, quietly and clearly, to yourself, I know what I need to do. Let the retrograde hold the action while the knowing settles into your bones. When Mercury goes direct on March 20th, the path forward will be clearer than it's been in weeks. I'd love to know if that last one resonates. Is there something you've been feeling pulled toward, even though every logical part of you says the timing is wrong? You don't have to share the details, just type, I feel the pull in the comments. I think you'll find you are in very good company tonight. So those are the 7. And if you recognized yourself in even 2 or 3 of them, you are not imagining it. You are not being dramatic, and nothing is wrong with you. The sky is doing something very specific right now, and your body and heart are responding honestly. So let's talk about what to do with all of this. First, the timeline. Because knowing when this peaks and when it eases makes everything more manageable. The conjunction is exact tomorrow, March 15th. That's the tightest point. March 14th through the 16th is your peak intensity window. Be especially gentle with yourself and with the people around you during those days. Then, on March 18th, we have a new moon in Pisces. This is a genuine reset point. If you've been waiting for the right moment to set a quiet intention for what comes next, the new moon is it. Then, March 20th, 2 things happen. Mercury stations direct, and the Sun enters Aries, marking the spring equinox and the beginning of a brand new astrological year. This is when the fog begins to lift. It won't be instant. Think of it as sunrise rather than a light switch, but forward momentum returns, and you will feel the shift. By the second week of April, Mercury clears its post-retrograde shadow completely. The hardest part of this is not ahead of you. It's beneath your feet right now. You're already in it, and you're already moving through it. Now, Which signs are feeling this most acutely? If you're a Pisces sun or rising, this conjunction is happening in your first house, your house of identity, of self, of your physical body. You are feeling this in the most personal way possible. It's moving through who you are at the most fundamental level. Be extraordinarily patient with yourself right now. Virgo, the conjunction opposes your sign and lands in your seventh house of partnerships and close relationships. Old relationship dynamics are being stirred. Something in how you relate to the people closest to you is asking to be examined, but gently, and ideally not until Mercury goes direct. If you're a Gemini, Mercury is your ruling planet, so you feel every retrograde more acutely than most. This conjunction squares your sign from your 10th house of career and public life, and you may feel caught between what you're showing the world and what you're feeling inside. That gap is where the real work lives right now. Sagittarius, this one squares your sign from your 4th house, home, family, emotional roots. Something in your private world is being activated, and it may connect to a family pattern that goes back much further than this week. And for the water signs, Cancer and Scorpio, you feel this Piscean undercurrent more naturally than anyone. Trust your instincts right now. They're picking up on something real. Every sign is affected by this conjunction. Those 6 simply feel it most intensely. For all of you, regardless of your sign, here's what I'd recommend during this window. Journal, and not to figure anything out, just to let it out. Write without editing, without structure, without worrying about whether it makes sense. Let the pen be the channel that Mars is looking for. Move your body. Walk, stretch, dance in your kitchen if that's what feels right. Mars needs a physical outlet, and gentle movement is one of the kindest things you can offer yourself this week. If you know your birth chart, look at where 10 degrees Pisces falls. Whatever house that is, that's where this conjunction is concentrating for you personally. That's where the 7 feelings are gathering most. And give yourself permission to not know yet. Mercury retrograde does not owe you clarity on your timeline. The understanding will come. March 20th begins the turning point. You don't have to have it all figured out before then. You just have to be willing to keep feeling your way through. And if this transit has been moving through you, especially in your body or your dreams, I put together a guided practice called the Divine Healing and Protection Ritual for exactly this kind of energy. It's at mailinastro.com, and the link is in the description. It's there if you feel called to it. One more thing before I let you go, and I want to take my time with this because I think it matters. Notice that all 7 of these feelings, even the uncomfortable ones, are signs of something alive in you. The irritability is your boundaries trying to speak. The dreams are your unconscious doing its deep work. The tears are your heart completing something it started a long time ago. The tension in your body is energy gathering before it finds its direction. And that quiet pull toward change, that is your future reaching back for you. None of this is happening to you, it is happening through you. And there is a real difference. This Mercury-Mars conjunction is one moment inside a much larger month and a much larger turning point. March 2026 opened with a lunar eclipse. It's closing with Mercury going direct, all planets moving forward, and the spring equinox marking the beginning of an entirely new astrological year. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction is active in early Aries, the first time these 2 planets have met in a new sign in nearly 3 decades. Old structures are dissolving, new ones haven't fully formed yet. And that in-between space is disorienting. You're in the hallway between rooms right now. The door behind you has closed. The one ahead hasn't opened yet, but you can feel the light underneath it. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're not broken. You're in transition. And transition, by its very nature, feels like nothing is solid beneath you. That's not a sign that something is wrong. That's a sign that something is changing. And here is what I really want you to carry with you tonight. Every single one of those 7 feelings is evidence that you are awake. You are not numb. You are not checked out. You are feeling the full weight of being alive during a profound shift, and your willingness to feel it, all of it, even the parts that don't make sense yet, is not weakness. It is courage. It is, quietly, the most Mars thing you could possibly do. You have survived every Mercury retrograde you've ever lived through. Every one. You will move through this one too. But this time, I want you to consider that you might do more than simply survive it. You might let it finish something that's been incomplete. You might let it say something your throat has been holding for longer than you'd care to admit. You might let it show you through a dream, or a sudden wave of tears, or a flash of quiet courage, what you're actually ready for now. Because that knowing, that deep, body-level knowing, doesn't come from Mercury. It comes from somewhere older and wiser than language. And Pisces, for all its fog, is the sign that trusts that knowing most. March 15th, tomorrow, is the peak. Be gentle with yourself. March 18th is the new moon. Set your intention quietly, with your hand on your heart. March 20th, Mercury stations direct, and the equinox begins a new astrological year. Breathe. The fog lifts. The path clears. And when it does, you'll be standing there not as someone who white-knuckled her way through, but as someone who felt everything and let it transform her. I would love to hear from you after this weekend. Come back to this video and tell me which of the 7 feelings hit you the strongest. And let me know if anything shifts for you around the new moon on the 18th. I read every single comment. And this community that's growing here, the way you show up for each other, the way you share your experiences, so honestly, it means more than you know. If this kind of depth is what you've been looking for, I'm here every week. I'd love to have you. Until next time, be gentle with yourself this week. Let the water move. Let the feelings come. They know where they're going, even when you don't. I'll see you in the next one.